Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost reproductive health services to women in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off the reproductive health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Lauren Searden, Operations Manager for 3W Medical for Women, and the host of today's podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast, Wellness Wednesday with 3W. It is Lauren today, your host, and I am here with Sulamita, or Sula the Doula, as we like to call her. She is back with us, and last time we met, we talked about why we should have a doula, how that helps in birth, and she's back again. Exciting things are happening in my life. I am 33 weeks pregnant, so they said, Lauren, you get to host this podcast because this is applicable to your life, and me and Sulamita get to talk all things baby, swaddling, burping, all the gadgets that come along with new parenthood. So Sulamita, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to be here, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're really excited. And when Teresa asked me to do this, I was like, well, great. I would probably have listened to it if I didn't host it. So I'm happy I get to be the live one asking questions so I can get all the details for this baby that's coming in 2 months or so.
Yeah. Well, I have lots of answers for you.
Great. Awesome. Well, since it's been a while, let's just reintroduce yourself to the audience and to them about your work and what kind of you're the expert in, we can call you.
Yeah. So my name is Sulamita. I am a birth and postpartum doula. I've been doing it for about 3 years now. I kind of mainly work in the Seattle area, a little bit on the east side, but I live up in Bothell, so I also work a little bit up there as well. And yeah, I do both birth and postpartum, so I attend births, and then I work with postpartum, helping families kind of adjust to that new
awesome
lifestyle.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, with your postpartum doula work, is it a lot of times in the night you're there, or is it kind of whenever they need you? Is it a lot of times the clients that you have helped with birth?
So I have had some go from birth to postpartum. Usually it's not like both. Usually people pick one just for like budget allowances.
Of course. Things can add up.
Yeah. I mainly work at nights. There are doulas out there for postpartum who have like day shifts available, but I'm a mom and I'm busy. So I do the overnight shifts are for my postpartum.
Awesome.
And I love the overnight shifts with the babies.
I can just imagine. I'm a first-time parent, first-time mom, so I've never done this before, but I know that would be a huge blessing to get a good night's sleep and know that your baby is taken care of by someone who is an expert like I'm calling you. So
I have heard great feedback, and being a parent myself, that was one of the areas that I feel like you have this new baby and everything's great, but if you're not sleeping, then things can get not so great.
Totally. That's one thing. I'm like, I'm really a pretty stable person, but no food or no sleep, I drop into low functioning quite quickly. So this postpartum period will be quite fun, quite interesting, but we will adjust. Awesome. So let's jump into the topic for today's podcast, the swaddling, burping, baby gadgets, all the things. Let's start with maybe swaddling. What are some common mistakes or misconceptions maybe parents make when it comes to swaddling?
Yeah. One of the main things that I see happening is parents will swaddle their baby and their baby's crying. So they say, oh, my baby hates being swaddled. Sure. So they stop swaddling. And that's actually it's hard because babies sleep best swaddled. So if you think your baby doesn't like to be swaddled, then you stop swaddling, then they're up all night, and then it's just hard. Right. So a lot of times I'll come into a home and they're like, yeah, we put our baby in the swaddle, and they just cry. But they cry for 5 minutes and then they fall asleep and get a good 3-hour stretch. Right. So sometimes if it's not immediate like relief or happiness in the swaddle, does not mean your baby hates it.
Sure. Why do babies want to be swaddled, or why is that safe? I can have an idea that like the womb was a tight place, but
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And in that 4th trimester, so the first 3 months after births, babies are kind of adjusting to the new world, but what brings them comfort is the womb and where they came from.
Right.
And so being swaddled, that's why we like the shushing noise machines and the darkness, just to mimic kind of where they came from, because that's their like home, and that's what they feel safe in.
Totally. I know I've seen some beautiful videos of after a mom gives birth when the baby's crying and then like hears the mom's voice or smells or, you know, is on the mom and then like is calm, and it's like, that's so cool because she like, they're like, all you people, this is bright, cold, whatever, but I know her.
Yes.
I know her voice. And I had a friend who just had a baby who said like, immediately her newborn, if her husband or her were talking, would like calm down. It's so cool to see these gadgets or things we can do to help mimic what was comfortable then or helped them feel, you know, safe.
Yeah. And even just like holding a baby tightly instead of like letting them just lay in your arms kind of mimics that tight hold that they're so used to. And they're just used to being kind of like in the womb, there's like pressure all around them. So like you want to like, if they're laying on you and you put your hands on them, then they're kind of like sandwiched between two pressure points and they feel better. So that's kind of why we swaddled.
Any other mistakes that parents have or that you sometimes notice new parents doing with swaddling?
Yeah. Another thing that I notice a lot is that babies will break out of swaddles, and babies are stronger than we think.
Right. I can feel that.
And so parents don't swaddle tight enough in fear of like, oh, I'm hurting my baby.
Right.
And I recommend to swaddle tightly, just because that helps mimic that. Because babies will move. You can feel how strong they are in there. And they're going to do that outside in the real world too. So when they're moving in their swaddle, you want them to stay put because they'll get an arm out and then they're awake. Yeah. So like we want successful sleep. So let's swaddle tightly so they can stay put.
And what about the babies that like their hands up on their face? Because I feel like I hear a lot of my friends who are postpartum that are like, my baby, I swaddle it, but she wants her hands like right here.
And you can swaddle.
Yeah, with like arms up. Yeah, like we don't have to do a straight jacket moment.
Correct. Yes. And actually that brings me into like the types of swaddles they have. So there's so many different swaddles out there. It's
overwhelming.
Yes.
Like, okay, I guess this one works. You know, if you've never used it before, you don't know.
Yes. Yeah, it is very overwhelming. Totally. Even for someone more like, they come to me for swaddle recommendations and I'm like, oh man, there's so many. Yeah. But I like start with 2 because that's pretty easy. 1, the hospital usually sends you home with a swaddle, and I really like the ones that they use. It's a basic like wraparound kind of swaddle. So that's if your baby, you can swaddle straight jacket. Some babies actually do well in that position. Or you can put their arms up kind of when they're scrunched and swaddle them that way. The other swaddle that I recommend is called Love to Dream. Okay. And it's a swaddle that it's like a sleeping bag, basically. You put them in, but their arms are like this. Oh. And they can move a little bit better. So their arms are like in this butterfly position. Yeah. And some babies do prefer that more than like the wraparound swaddle.
Gotcha.
So those 2 are going to be your best like starting point.
Yeah. So it's good to have a swaddle that you can kind of wrap yourself, if you will, and then something that with that one, is there like zippers and
it's just
Velcro.
One zipper.
Okay.
One zipper.
Yeah.
So you put the baby down, you kind of put their arms up in the little pockets and then you zip it up. And they kind of look like a snow angel almost.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
What about the ones that have that like Velcro over it where they I've seen lay the baby down, and this is hard over audio, sorry guys. Yeah. And then you cross over these Velcros, and then it's kind of a zip up. What do you feel about those ones?
Yeah, so that's a wraparound kind of swaddle. So that's kind of the same thing that you'll probably get at the hospital where you're delivering.
It just has the Velcro on the zipper.
It has the extra parts to it. That's where like you go off and what works best for you and your family, the type of different kinds
Try
you get.
Some different ones if
like,
it's not working.
The Velcro is great because you can get a good tight like. You can Velcro the baby, basically. So it's hard to break out.
If you have a strong one.
Yes. The con of that is if you're waking up kind of in the middle of the night to change a diaper and you have to un-Velcro a baby and you're trying to be quiet.
That's startling.
It's very startling.
That makes sense.
You got to keep that in mind. Plus the Velcro, everything catches onto it when you wash and dry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, these are things you don't think about. Truly. I mean, you're like, yeah, my friends use that one. That one's great. Or like it's popular. I've seen it on social media. But then you're like, the logistics of a Velcro. I hate when Velcro goes in the wash and it like attaches everything and then it like will peel your clothes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
This is so informative. So before we jump into maybe some burping things, what are some techniques for swaddling that you kind of give to parents, especially maybe the ones that you have to do yourself, if you will, and not the ones that you just zip.
Yeah. So the zip up one is pretty self-explanatory. You put the baby and zip them up. It's great. The wraparound ones, or the ones that you kind of wrap them in, the biggest takeaway that I want to give is just make sure it's tight. Wrap them tightly. Place their arms in how they're in the position that they're comfortable. So arms down or arms kind of up, by their chin. And it's really just like a burrito. So if you want to practice, like, it's the best way to explain it for a first-time parent. It's wrapping them around. So you go across, and then it really helps if you go underneath them as well, because they're laying down, and that helps kind of keep everything together.
That makes sense.
So you really just wrap them around.
Yeah, keep wrapping.
And then tuck, either in the bottom or the top, wherever that end ends up. So just tuck it in. And again, hard to explain over audio. But
do you think that a common mistake is maybe like they don't go tighter than you think you should go kind of idea? Because they're going to move and it's going to open up. Okay.
Yes. So what I've seen is, a parent will swaddle a baby, but it comes unswaddled very quickly. So just go tight and make sure, especially like the first couple wraparounds, really just pull that blanket or that swaddle tightly around the baby. Yeah. To kind of get them locked into position.
Totally. And then we can quickly touch on this. I know you could probably do a whole podcast on like safe sleep and all of these things, but it's so funny talking with older generations, because I was looking at baby books, like mine and my brother's and my dad's baby book this weekend before my baby shower. The amount of blankets these parents, and my mom is always like, well, you survived. And it's very like, these babies look so cold, in these, it's just them in this like sad blanket and nothing else. But swaddling, I am assuming, is a good thing to do for babies to feel safe, to keep babies warm, but also to not have extra things in bassinet or crib.
Yeah. So another thing that baby really likes is to be warm. So, our bodies are 98.6 degrees. Yeah. So babies really like warmth. And so you want to mimic that during sleep, but loose blankets are hard. And safe sleep is a hard one, especially with older generations.
Yes.
I think that we kind of went to we had some unfortunate accidents with babies. And so then the law came down, like, this is the only way to do it.
Nothing on back, nothing in the crib or bassinet.
Yes. So swaddling is okay as long as baby can't turn themselves over. Once baby starts rolling, you have to stop and let their arms out.
Of course. So they can move themselves.
They can pick themselves up, off the mattress if they have to. So that's kind of like this safe sleep and swaddling, that once your baby can start to roll on its own, you want to stop swaddling their arms inside.
That makes sense. And can you still swaddle, or would it be better to go to like a sleep sack?
It would definitely be better to go to a sleep sack at that point. I do not recommend swaddling if your baby's rolling, for sure.
Even if the arms are out, because you want the legs out.
But you can swaddle the top, but it's really hard to secure it. Yeah, and if they're rolling, they're just going to roll out of it.
You just keep rolling out the blanket. Yeah, totally. You want something kind of attached to their body, if you will.
So a sleep sack that zips would be perfect.
Okay, awesome. And that's generally around what month? Between 3-ish?
Yeah. So the fourth trimester, I would say you can swaddle, but around 3 months, 4 months, and every baby's different. Sure. So if you're having, someone who's not rolling, like, you can probably keep them in a swaddle a little bit longer. But if you're on the floor with your baby a lot, they're probably going to get the hang of rolling sooner. Yeah. So just make your best judgment call.
Do you find that after that 3 months that does the baby need that as much at that 3-4 month period when they aren't able to be swallowed anymore? The benefits of feeling tight as they adjust to the real world, do they maybe not want that anymore as they did earlier when they first were fresh out the womb?
Yeah, I think babies do like it, especially if there's teething going on, or they're sick. They like to be held and swaddled and cuddled.
So maybe like a contact nap, you could swaddle and you're holding them, so they're not gonna turn over in the night.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So it's not like you cannot swaddle anymore. It's just that if you're going to swaddle, you have to be there with them. I wouldn't recommend overnight.
Yes.
As a postpartum doula, for example, if I'm there and I'm holding the baby, they can be swaddled.
Of course.
And they do enjoy it. They do still find comfort in it, but they are a little bit more aware of their bodies. And sometimes, they'll smack their face with their hand to wake themselves up. But it's
where'd that come from?
But that's also important. You want them to kind of gain awareness in their body and how everything moves, you
of
know.
course.
So if we're constantly swaddling them, they're going to be like, what do I do with my fingers?
Yeah, well,
so.
especially like when they are turning over in the night, like we need you to be able to move yourself.
Yes.
So let's learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And then really quick, I know I'm jumping over into some more swaddling, but I've seen these like weighted sleep sacks.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion on those? Because I've seen mixed feelings. I know like I don't know if they're fully safe.
Mm-hmm.
This whole safe sleep's a little overwhelming because some people take it one way of like nothing, and then other people are like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
But what's your opinion on these weighted things?
Yeah, so I am a little bit more loose on the safe sleep side of things, just to kind of preference how this is going. I'm just more comfortable with a weighted sleep sack, and actually there is a nested bean is a great sleep sack that they have that's weighted, but they make one that is that same kind of arms up swaddle that I was talking to you about. So you can start using that almost immediately. And then the arms, you can unzip it. So the baby stays in the same sack that it's used to, but now its arms are free.
Oh, that's cool. And that's like a nice, for these parents who feel like they have to buy a million things, that could be a nice gadget that grows with the baby.
Yeah. So if your baby likes, this Love to Dream swaddle, I would highly recommend getting that one because you can unzip it. Also, these babies like to suck on the hands, especially, and it kind of gets a little stinky. But this one is like, it's made out of like this like netting material.
Cool.
So it's really, it doesn't get as wet. Their arms don't stay soaking wet all night long.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
So I do like those, and I recommend if your baby likes like contact napping and that weighted feeling, I do feel like helps. My daughter was very colicky, and that's what we used for her.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've had friends who the transition from the swaddle to have to be a sleep sack, the weighted also was helpful to have that pressure. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Want to jump into burping or any other swaddle things that you have before
I think that's like the basics. We could talk about swaddling for like ever.
Of course.
There's like a million different other swaddles.
Totally.
But
and
that's like the basics.
And all the things.
Yeah. But,
awesome. Yeah. What are some common mistakes parents make when it comes to burping or burping
it's
after
the
feeds?
Same as swaddling. They're a little bit too gentle. I know. They're kind of, and that's okay. But some babies, you need to be a little bit more, not aggressive, but like they need a little bit more of like help with burping. Yeah. So sometimes parents are like, my baby really needs to burp. I can't get them to burp. And it's just, you need to put a little bit more oomph in the burping process.
Yeah. Do you find that regardless of breastfed or bottle fed, babies need the same amount of, every baby's different, but if you were going to bottle feed and breastfeed the same baby, would one cause more burps, air bubble, things like that? Or is it pretty standard for breast or bottle?
There might be a little bit more need for burping if you're breastfeeding. And I say that because it mostly depends on the baby's suck.
Sure.
And bottles are kind of made to
help flow.
Yeah. And so with the breast, there can be a little bit more air coming in. And that causes, for the air in the baby's tummy that needs to come out. But I would say just a little bit, because even if you're breastfeeding, you could have a sealed shut, good latch and not really need the burping as much. So I would say maybe just a little bit more.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it good to burp like mid-feed or just wait till the end? Like let's say someone's breastfeeding and they switch breasts or they do it for 10 minutes and then burp? Or is it better to like let the feed be done and then burp?
I do like the burp between the breasts. It gives baby a chance to kind of settle that food. If you have this, air in the tummy and you just put more food on it, that's probably going to come up. So I do like the burp feed, especially if you have a baby kind of with a sensitive stomach and is having a hard time keeping things down and they're spitting up a lot, then burp frequently. And again, it's very dependent on the baby. Some babies can take a full bottle and be totally fine, or, 2 sides of the breast and be totally fine. So maybe in the newborn stage, yes, burp frequently, and then just kind of see how your baby's doing.
Sure.
And go from there.
Yeah. And so what are some techniques? I know we kind of just said the switching or, doing in between, but what are some techniques we can do for burping that will help baby adjust?
Frequent burping, like we were saying, is super important. And the way you burp, I think, is also kind of important. There's the over-the-shoulder tapping kind of burp, and that's really good, but just make sure that you're really trying to get that air bubble and not just patting them to sleep.
You're like, I'm full. This feels so nice. Knocked out.
Also, even rubbing their back sometimes gets things out. You don't necessarily have to like pound on their back to get an air bubble out.
But just like pressure kind of.
Yeah. Another favorite one that I like to use is sitting the baby up. And this kind of scares parents. Like, I'll do it, and they're like, what are you doing?
Especially maybe with, like, the necks a little.
Yeah.
You're, like, holding the neck.
You have to hold the neck with one hand, and then you, like, put their chin in the other hand, and then so they're kind of, like, leaning over their belly.
Sure.
And you're kind of holding their face up. I think it's adorable, but I can also see how some parents are like, what are you doing to my baby?
Yeah. You don't see that a lot.
Newborn babies aren't supposed to sit up, but here you have this baby that's, like, folded over, basically.
Right? You're like, are they good?
That is a great position to kind of get those burps out if your baby's, like, someone who doesn't burp. It's hard to get them to burp.
Yeah.
So you kind of, like, fold them over. You're holding their cheeks basically in your hand, and you're rubbing and patting their back, and that really helps.
Maybe that forward pressure kind of on the, I'm assuming, diaphragm-y area might help.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you always going to hear, this might be a dumb question, are you always going to, like, hear an audible burp?
I would say for the most part, yes. If it's kind of like, because they're releasing air.
Sure.
So you're always going to hear a burp, or you're going to feel it.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can feel it too.
Yeah, you can feel, like, the body kind of, like, letting go.
Make that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any gadgets for things, like, regarding burping? I feel like burping's pretty, like, manual labor. No, but, like, you have to do it yourself, right?
Burp cloths. I mean,
the burp
highly
cloths.
recommend burp cloths. Never say no to a burp cloth.
Every friend I have is like, if you get one pack, you need 3. Like, you always need more.
Yes. And it's really nice to have a lot so that you're not doing laundry every
2
30
seconds.
minutes.
Yeah.
So just have extra burp cloths. If you don't need them because your baby doesn't spit up, they're washcloths now.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a reason
you're
for
gonna
them.
You're gonna use them, and they're not expensive.
No.
For the grand scheme of baby items, the
Yeah.
burp cloth is probably the least of them.
Yes.
So get that extra pack.
Yeah. And if you do have a baby that, like, spits up a lot, another, like, trick you can use is after feedings, hold them up for, like, 30 minutes before you lay them down. And this is where it kind of gets hard at nighttime when you're trying to sleep. My postpartum families come to me because they have a baby who needs to be held upright for a little bit.
That makes sense.
And so you kind of hold them upright and rub their back, and they'll burp, and then you keep going, and they'll burp, and you keep going.
Right.
And it also helps things settle. So then when you lay them down, the food is kind of settled in the stomach.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you find that in the night when we're doing feeds, I mean, you need to burp still, especially in the beginning days. So after a feed, you do the burping. If they burp, they'll be sleepy and they'll be good to go back usually? Or do sometimes they, after you're burping and like that, I mean, I guess the patting you said sometimes puts them to sleep, but do you feel like that ever wakes them up more to, like, because I have understood that, like, feeding, they can get really sleepy. So does that upward motion feel like it keeps them up?
No, I feel like you're feeding, baby falls asleep, you unlatch, you pick them up. Well, the other thing I recommend is when you go to feed them, have them already swaddled.
Yes. So then you can just
So and they'll fall asleep on your shoulder as you hold them, but then they'll have a poopy diaper or something else happen. So then you're kind of waking them up. And that's another reason why, even if you don't have, like, a spitty baby, to burp between feeds, because you can feed, burp, and then maybe they'll have a poopy diaper, so you can change it, wake them up for the second breast so they're not as sleepy.
That makes sense. So if in the middle of the night, a good routine would be maybe if baby's crying or, you know, you wake up, you're feeding them, maybe change them first and then get them back comfortable, feed them, burp, check the situation out, feed again, maybe burp a little bit, and then they're usually good to go back to sleep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the routine.
That helps a lot. Honestly, this has been so helpful for me. These are these things you're like, well, whatever my baby does, I'll figure out. But to think about it beforehand.
Yeah.
When you're of sound mind and not sleep deprived, like, what did Sulamita say? Let's play the podcast real quick. And then building off a little bit, for parents that may be low income or just, I mean, at the end of the day, baby things are expensive. The baby industry is crazy. Like, you just get bombarded with products, things, parents, TikToks are like, you need this or you're going to not survive the newborn stage. How do we find affordable, accessible baby gadgets or gear? And, like, what are, a way that we parents that maybe want to be more minimal, even if, like, they're not technically low income, it's just like, I don't want a million things in my house. I live in a small space. So I'm like, I love you, baby, but we don't need 100 things for every type of thing. What are kind of your suggestions on keeping cost a thought.
Yeah. So if you don't, I'm going to talk about not wanting a lot of things. You don't need a lot of like the play stuff that they have for babies.
Yeah.
That's one place you can kind of think to like cut back. Things that I would kind of like make space for would be like bouncers, to have a safe place to put the baby if you need to put the baby down. So like a bouncer
sense.
or a lounger would be something that I would consider getting. A bathtub would be something else that I feel like you need, especially when they're so little.
Yeah.
Like you need a place to put them
where they can be lounged.
Safe. Yeah.
And not just like laying in a bathtub flat.
Exactly. So those are kind of things that I'm like, if you're going to get anything, get that.
Yeah.
As far as like cost stuff, obviously consignment. There's so many in the Seattle area that you can gently used baby stuff that are passed on. And I feel like a lot of parents do that too. If you probably have friends who are like, let me give you this.
Yes,
let me give you this.
Exactly.
And if you don't have friends who are having babies, a lot of parents in the area will just kind of donate their baby stuff.
Yeah.
So you can find a lot of that. Facebook groups are great. Join your Buy Nothing group and post what you need. Strollers, car seats, everything. People are just giving them away.
Awesome.
There's also a sale. Have you heard of Just Between Friends?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's one coming to Linwood, the Linwood Event Center. It's called Just Between Friends. It's also a place where moms or parents can donate their everything. They have everything that you would ever need for a baby.
So cool.
And they go up to toddlers too. So like I shop there for my kids because I mean they grow. Over the summer they grow a whole size. And I'm like,
sure.
A whole new wardrobe for school? What?
Yeah. Oh gosh. So, I've been thinking that. I'm like, all these clothes now. And then she's just going to keep needing new ones.
Yes. So it's called Just Between Friends.
Okay.
I know more about the ones like up north just because that's where I live.
Sure.
There has to be probably some maybe in Puyallup, I think, too.
Cool.
Linwood Event Center is the one coming up October 5th through the 7th. And they do have a day for first-time parents only. So if you're a first-time parent, that's a day for you to go before they open up to the public because you need the stuff.
Yeah. That's kind of perfect. I am due early November, so that could be a great place to get some last-minute things we're still needing.
Yes. And they have all the things I mentioned, bouncers, loungers, bathtubs, bottles, clothes, swaddles, everything.
And it's at a discounted price because it's donated.
Very, very heavily discounted.
Yeah.
It is very, very nice to go there. It's a great place to check out.
Awesome. And is it like just the event center? It has big things and you're just like going through like tables and racks and things like that? Is that the idea?
And they have like sections. So they have like a clothes section. Cool. They'll have like a baby, swaddling section. They'll have like nursing pillows section.
That's awesome.
Shoe section. Toys.
I think we're putting out this podcast soon, so we definitely will link it. If you want to send us the link, we can put that there. Is there an admission to get in? Is it like a ticket price?
I think for first-time parents, no. And then you can buy tickets if you want to get in before they open to the general public, so you have a better like selection.
Sure.
And then on Friday, so I think that's the 7th. On Friday, it's just open to the public.
Nice.
Or maybe Saturday's the 7th. And so it's open to the public on Friday. You can go. On Saturday, it's open to the public and everything's 50% off.
Nice. So it's kind of like, do you go early and get the good stuff or do you wait until the sale?
Yeah.
Okay. This is really, really amazing. Helpful for me, helpful, I'm sure, for our listeners. Any last final thoughts for our listeners, Sulamita, on swaddling, burping, things that we can use as baby gadgets? Anything else?
I also wanted to touch base on like bottles and pacifiers.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that can get super overwhelming. Kind of the same thing with swaddles. I recommend buying 2.
Yeah.
2 bottles, 2 pacifiers, and see what your baby likes. You don't have to run out and buy 30 pacifiers.
Literally.
So just, get 2. There's 2 different like nipple sizes that you can buy and just see what your baby likes and go from there. You really don't have to like go down this rabbit hole of purchasing all the things.
Yeah.
And then you have a baby that doesn't even like pacifiers.
No, I feel that. I'm like, I'll just get like 2 bottles. I think also, especially for people who are going to bottle feed, like obviously they need more bottles, but for someone who I'm planning on breastfeeding, I don't need a million bottles. I hope to breastfeed. Obviously I want bottles in case, but also I don't need to buy a million bottles, sanitize them and be like, you hate this one. So maybe try a couple. Do you have any ones you like, especially for like breastfed babies that need not that nipple confusion I've heard so much about?
That's a whole nother podcast.
I know. We could probably come back and do some feeding ones.
For breastfed babies, the flat nipple one, the best one that you can go with. But it also depends on the mom's nipple.
Right.
That's where nipple confusion kind of comes in. So if you have like, super pointy nipples, then you want a bottle that has like like the Komotomo might be a better option for you.
Right.
But then also if you're breastfeeding, then there's like the Dr. Brown, which has the inserts.
Yes.
It helps with the
like
bubbles and the gas.
Flow
and
thing.
the flow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we may need to bring you back because this feels like we're going to get into a whole thing. That is really interesting. I've never really thought, you probably should like compare your nipple to said bottle nipple. Wow. Okay, I think we do need to do back, but that's great. Yes, I think it's a good thing about when we're talking about saving money or just not having too much,
right?
Where then you have to be the one donating things after to be like, okay, get a few, see what they like, and then like troubleshoot almost from there, and then be like, okay, we're investing in this said brand or these two brands once the baby decides what they like.
And if you're bottle feeding, I definitely would pick one that has like a anti-colic feature. So Dr. Brown or I think the Avent one also has one.
Yeah.
Because it slows the flow of it. So it helps prevent all those gas bubbles from building up. Yeah.
Totally. Awesome. I've also heard just like sometimes a smaller nipple because they actually have to suck instead of it just like pouring into their mouth.
Correct.
Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. And that's a whole, And then sometimes they like, because they don't have to work for the milk in a bottle.
Right.
So then they start to prefer bottles over the breast. And then you're
again, I think we need to come back for this one as we jump into it, but it's so interesting. I love to talk about it. Awesome. Anything else that we should touch on?
I think that's
thank you so much for coming on, Sulamita. It is always so great. You're such a wealth of knowledge, especially for me right now, and I could probably talk to you for hours about this stuff and all the things. So thank you so much for listening to another podcast here at Wellness Wednesday with 3W. We'll definitely have Sulamita on again if she wants to come back and talk more about birth, postpartum, all the things that she is so knowledgeable on. So thank you so much for listening, everyone, and I hope you have a great day. For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more about the services we provide, book an appointment, or even make a donation if you'd like to help support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you liked this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.